to the last episode of this mini-series focused on structuring Dubai real estate, where I'm joined by Kath Zagatti, lead private client partner MHQ. Kath, how are you?
Good, thanks, Yann.
Hey, let's try not to bore our audience today, huh?
Yeah.
Let's talk tax.
Yes, exactly. So let's try to be straightforward here. So as you recall, Yann, we in our previous webcast, we discussed what works and what doesn't in terms of UAE property structuring. And we concluded that foundation is indeed the most sophisticated and effective tool for this purpose. We also quickly touched upon the fact that foundations are tax efficient. And I'm aware of that there has been a few updates on this topic recently. So what I wanted you to provide us today, it's with an overview of foundations throughout the years and what is the most recent update in terms of foundations and corporate tax efficiency.
Yeah. So maybe if you step back, it's the UAE non-forest, non-fiscal environment, and all of a sudden you have this blanket corporate tax that comes on the country. So does that mean that financial regulated industry and proprietary investment is now subject to corporate tax? The answer is in most cases not, because the government is pragmatic and applies a number of exemptions and tools that enable proprietary investments to not be taxed at all. That's good news. So what has happened is that before corporate tax, when foundation came in, we did not bother about any fiscal friction. So we would set up something like this, which is a foundation at the top, probably some underlying light touch entities. Think a DIFC prescribed company, an ADGM, SPV, a RAC ICC, and this would hold the underlying asset. Here we chose to segregate them by asset class. No problem at all. And then arrived corporate tax. So then we had to think, what is the best solution today? And what happened in the first, I would say, when in the first wave of implementation of corporate tax, not all exemptions were in place. And there was no exemption enabling to pool transparency, which is an exemption that works for foundation. I'll come to that, to this underlying company. So as a result, we erred on the side of caution and we recommended to clients, hey, stick to what is simple, have a foundation, sure, because a foundation can apply for fiscal transparency and as a result not be taxed itself, but you are taxed in the hands of the beneficiaries. But if the beneficiaries are in a non-tax country, and typically the UAE is one, zero tax for you on any of this income. So wonderful. So you can hold real estate and let's say a financial portfolio, and you will not be taxed on that at the foundation level. Here we maintain this holding company, holding business assets, and in the previous scenario, this holding company could access free zone relief, but potentially sometimes be taxed. So it was a little bit on the edge of risk. Now, move fast forward. And again, that's where you see that the government here is very pragmatic because they listened to single family office with a little bit of help of MHQ, going to them and say, hey, we think that you should increase the scope of the fiscal transparency on foundations to underlying passive vehicles, which is now possible under the law. So this has become available again. So this is the new best practice. You can come back to what we were doing before, which is foundation at the top. You could even have separate foundation if you wanted to by asset class, if you wanted to segregate governance, for example, or even risk. But you can now have holding one, holding two, holding three, and treat that transparently, completely, and as a result, be tax neutral.
Mm-hmm. But I have a follow-up question here, Yann. So you said that holding companies fully owned by foundation, which is what we are seeing here, can benefit from this corporate tax efficiency, yeah? But so what would you recommend for those who structure their properties before, which is foundation holding directly the property? Should they now incorporate a holding company and then shift the asset or just keep the structure as is?
So I would say only do that, which is adding a structure, which is also means adding cost plus the transfer cost, only do that if there's a benefit. So, okay, so what would be that benefit? So let's start with, if you have a foundation that owns only real estate, let's say residential real estate, you have a portfolio and only that asset, I would probably not move it unless you are in negotiation with your bank, etc., and they are maybe more open to finance you at better terms if the interface is a company. That could be a scenario. So if that's the scenario, then go for it. Maybe you want to offload part of that portfolio to an investor. That would come at the company level. You could not do that at the foundation level. So you have a real practicality reason of putting that company there. Then maybe you have multiple asset classes, in which case what you see on the screen is probably better practice. Maybe you have a team that does only the real estate. Maybe you want that team not to know about the portfolio that is here. So in that case, you may want to segregate by asset class, and the more asset classes you have exposure to, think private equity, think digital assets, think toys, etc., the more assets you have exposure to, probably you are likely to segregate and put some intermediary structure, or to have different vertical. It is quite often that we see entrepreneurs having three vertical. One is maybe their business, their core business, foundation, underlying holding, and something else. Then you have the passive investments, which in this case could be foundation holding real estate, a portfolio, and maybe something else on the side. And then additional ventures, because the historical business may not necessarily be structured under the same vertical and under the same governance as the new businesses, new venture, etc. So you would see something like this. So to summarize, it depends, but we are not necessarily pushing for additional vehicle for no reason. It needs to make business sense and needs to be arbitrage benefits versus cost. Luckily, the cost of these structures are minimal. If you look at the DIFC, the ADGM, RAC, they make a real effort in keeping the cost low. The license costs are reasonable. Families can control this structure to a vast extent by themselves. That also reduces the cost. So everything is green in the desert.
All right. And if one would decide to restructure and transfer the property from the foundation to this company, the holding company, what would be the fees vis-a-vis the land department in this case?
So again, land department, super pragmatic on this one. So if I have a foundation and I'm the beneficiary, and tomorrow I just put a structure under that because I want to structure optimize for a certain objective, then it will be a donation rate because the beneficiary before and after will be identical. And as a result, you will only have applied a 0.125% transfer or donation fee on the current value of the underlying assets, not the historical purchase one, but the current one. So it's very reasonable, and is the reason why actually quite a lot of people are now structuring for a special purpose, because they realize, hey, if I have a company there to hold my pool of real estate, I actually like, because this structure will be the interface towards all the tenants and vendors, and my foundation at the top is safe kept from all that noise below.
Oh, that's clear. Well, thank you, Yann, for the input today. Very insightful, as usual. And as I mentioned in our previous webcast, we have an interesting fact sheet on this topic, exploring all options available for structuring properties in the UAE. So if you're interested to know more about that, just feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you.